What's up, YouTubers? Thank you so much again for tuning into my channel. My name is Cordell Coles, aka the Fashion Connoisseur. And in this video, I want to discuss with you or go over with you about how to draft your sleeve for your t-shirt. In the previous videos, we went over how to measure your front and back front for your bodice for your t-shirt and how to draft the patterns as well as adding your pattern information. But in this video, we're gonna talk about how we're gonna measure our sleeve and how we're gonna draft the pattern for our sleeve, similar to the front and back. So here we go, let's get started. First off, the tools you will need just to measure your sleeve is your measuring tape. So here is your t-shirt. You just take your t-shirt. You're going to grab your measuring tape. First off, let's discuss what measurements we will need for our sleeve. So a few terms you need to understand. When you're measuring your sleeve, you need to find out how long you want your sleeve to be. So your sleeve length would be from here, the shoulder tip, to the bottom of the hem. That's your sleeve length. And in this case, this is a short sleeve, a t-shirt sleeve. Otherwise, it would be like a long sleeve shirt, maybe all the way to the forearm, 3/4 length sleeve. But in this one, we're doing a short sleeve t-shirt. So we got an idea of how long we want our t-shirt sleeve to be. So we want to know what that is. The next measurement we want to find out is our cap height. We want to know how much of a cap we want from the shoulder tip, the shoulder bone here, all the way to the bicep. So that's different from the sleeve length. So that can be from here to like midway length of the sleeve. So that would be called our cap height. The cap, the top part of the shoulder or the top part of the arm. And then we want to find out what our bicep width is. So we want to know how wide our bicep is. This here, I would say more, this here is the bicep. This is your bicep muscle here. So you want to know how wide that is for the t-shirt to go around. So that can be simply somewhere in between here. That's your bicep width. And then we want to know what your what the armhole length is. We want to know how long or how much it wraps around from here all the way going underneath the armpit. So that would be this measurement right here. Starting right here, going around the curve of the arm all the way to the armpits. So those are the 4 measures we need to find out. So you're going to lay your t-shirt flat. Make sure you can see all the seams as you're getting ready to measure them. You want to take your measuring tape, 60-inch, however much you have. You want to use the flexible tape. So we want to find out what our sleeve length is. So I'm going to take my measuring tape from the shoulder tip here and go all the way to the bottom of the hem. So for my sleeve length, I have 7 1/4. So just like we did on the front and back pattern, we want to make a note of how much our measurements are. So for my sleeve length, I have 7 1/4. So make note of that on the side. Next, we want to find out what our cap height is. So like I was saying, it's from the shoulder tip here to maybe like midway in between the sleeve length. So if I go from here, the shoulder tip, to maybe like midway in between, for my cap height, I get, I'm gonna say 3 1/2. Also, another way you can measure your cap height is by taking your measuring tape. Take your measuring tape, put it on your shoulder bone here, and maybe just walk it down to your bicep area, and that will give you a general idea of how high your cap height would be. So about around there, 3 to 4 inches is pretty much the average cap height. So I'm gonna go 3 1/2. So 3.5 for my cap height. And next we want to find out what our bicep width is. So for our bicep, we want to go from here to approximately towards the armhole. So for our bicep width, we take it here, and we take it all the way over here, we have 8 13/16. So that's our bicep width, 8 13/16 of an inch. And last but not least, we're going to measure our armhole from the shoulder tip here all the way around to the curve of the underarm. So we'll take our measuring tape and we'll just walk it around so we get underneath the armhole pit. And I have 9.5. So our armhole length is 9.5. Okay, so we found out what our measurements is for our sleeve just by using what we already have from our t-shirt, pretty much using this as a diagram to examine the sections on how to get our length, our sleeve length, our cap height, our bicep width, and our armhole length. So we can move this out the way. And then here is our draft for our sleeve. I pretty much started it already, but I'm gonna go over with you how we draft it. Okay, so for our sleeve, I know you guys probably can barely see this, but I'll bring the cameras closer in a minute. Okay, so when we draft our sleeve, we need our pencil, preferably, like I said, the mechanical, our 18-inch ruler, and we're gonna need that French curve that we discussed earlier in the videos for drawing curves of the armhole and curves of the neckline. We use this for the neckline and armholes. So we know what our sleeve length is. So we take our 18-inch ruler, we measure from the top, we measure straight down the paper, 7.25 inches. That's our sleeve length. 7.25 is our sleeve length. So we mark that, we go 7.25. I'm going to use a marker actually, so you can see it. Yeah. So we have our sleeve length, 7.25. So we're going to go down from the top of the paper all the way down to 7.25, and that's our sleeve length. And also, like I said, you can mark your measurements in the draft, or you can mark them on the side as well, just like we did for the front and the back. So we have our sleeve length. And now for our cap height, we want to measure our cap height. Our cap height is 3 to 4 inches. It's going to be above the sleeve length. So we said our cap height was 3.5. So from the top, where we measure down for the sleeve length, we're going to go to that same point at the top, and we're going to go down 3.5. So 3.5 inches is our cap height. Okay, so we have that, and now we want to know what our bicep width is. So bicep is, like I said, it's the muscle. It's from the side of the shirt all the way to the armhole, and that's just half of the bicep muscle. So we measure for our bicep muscle 8 13/16. So we'll start. It's pretty much, it's also perpendicular to the cap height. So you just want to go straight across when you draft it. And I'll show you guys what I mean once it's finished. So That is our cap height, bicep measurement. 8 and 13/16. Okay, and also we want to know our sleeve width. That's one measurement we didn't include. We want to know what our sleeve width is. So the width of our sleeve was, from our t-shirt draft, we had 7 inches. So that's how wide the opening of our sleeve is, which would be a total of 14. That was only half of the sleeve. So the sleeve width altogether, wraps around your arm, will be 14 inches wide. So that would be the bottom part here, which is also the hem. Anytime I mention the bottom, that's considered the hem. The hem refers to the bottom of the clothing, always the edge or the bottom of the clothing. So that's the width, sleeve width, 14 inches altogether. Sleeve width, 14 inches. Okay. And now for our armhole measurement, the curved part, he said that was 9.5. So now we pretty much have to draw sort of like a diagonal from the top of the sleeve to, we have to intersect that line with the bicep line. So we just draw a line. I'm gonna use a pencil. I don't want to mix it up with the other lines. So it's very important that you use different colored pencils or even markers to color code everything, so you know what is which is which. It's a very good technique to use. It's good to get in the habit of doing that, so you don't get confused later on. Front and back, when you do a front piece or back piece or a sleeve, keep everything color coded differently. It makes the process a lot easier. Okay, so that's that. And now we want to draw a curve because our arm is curved. So that's how the shape of the sleeve will look. The sleeve looks like this. The sleeve is one-dimensional when you lay it down flat. The t-shirt is one-dimensional, but when we draft it, we're going to draft it in more of a three-dimensional form to fit a three-dimensional body. So that's how we have to look at it. Okay, so now you want to draw the curve. So for our armhole width, that measurement we got 9.5, we have to divide that into 2 sections when we do it. So that helps us create the curve in the armhole. And I'll show you as soon as I finish this. So that's our armhole curve. Alright, so we have our armhole curve, armhole length, 9.5. And last but not least, we can draw more length for our hem. Draw the side seams. And I'm going to also show you how you're going to add your seam allowance to the I'm going to show you how to add the seam allowance to your pattern as well, sleeve pattern. Okay. Okay, so here is our draft for our sleeve. This is how the sleeve will look. And also you want to label all your information just like we did on the, so right here we have all of our measurement information for our sleeve that we discussed. So we have our armhole length, we have our cap height, we have our sleeve length all together, we have our sleeve width, and we have our bicep measurement, and we have the bottom of the hem. So this is how we drafted with our measurements. And also, like I said, you want to put your pattern information on here. So if you're sending this out to a manufacturer or someone, they know how to cut your fabric. They know how to make your. They know how to mass produce your collection because of the pattern information you gave them. You want to let them know how much. You want to let them know the size of the pattern. You want to let them know how much of it to cut. And you want to let them know what it is, like what piece it is. You would say it's the sleeve. It's the t-shirt sleeve. Just be very detailed about the information you put on there. So, and also you want to have a grain line, which is the line, a vertical line on your pattern that lines up with the grain of the fabric when you get ready to cut it out. It's pretty much like a guideline when you're cutting your fabric out. That's why you need a grain line when you get ready to cut. So you draw your grain line. So it's a vertical line. And like I said, put your information. So it's a t-shirt sleeve. And you want to put the size. I would say it's a small. And you want to say cut 2, because you want to cut one for the right and left shoulder. Okay. So I'll put it in marker 2. T-shirt sleeve cut 2. So there you have it. You have your pattern information on there. T-shirt sleeve cut 2, size small. Right here. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to add your grain line to your t-shirt. Excuse me, to your sleeve. So for the grain line, you pretty much just want to add the seam allowance like we mentioned before. Seam allowance is just the extra space in between the seam and the edge of the material when you stitch the two pieces of fabric together. That's called your seam allowance. So it'll look something like so. Seam allowance. This is seam allowance. That's what I mean by seam allowance. It's the stitching plus the edge of the fabric. It's that space in between there. That's called your seam allowance. You can tell when you look at your clothing. Say, for instance, if you look at your t-shirt, whenever you look at your clothes and you see like a little seam there, this is your seam allowance. That's the little space of the fabric in between the stitching, the edge of the material, and the stitchings. That's the seam allowance there. It's on all your clothing. Okay, so on this one, I'm gonna add, because whatever you add on the front, the bodice of the t-shirt, you wanna add the same one to the sleeve. So on the bodice of the t-shirts, we added, what did we add? We added 3/8. We added a 3/8 seam allowance. So on this one, we're also going to add a 3/8 seam allowance. So you want to take your ruler and you want to go around and just mark 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, like so. Just follow the curve. This is 3/8 going around. So that's the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then for the sides of the t-shirt, the sleeve, you want to add a 3/8 as well. Keep calling this thing a t-shirt. It's the sleeve. Alright, so also mark your seam allowance so you know what the seam allowances were. Just mark it inside the lines there. So you keep track. It's always good to keep note of your measurements and your seam allowance as well when you get ready to sew. So you're like, okay, how much was the seam allowance for that? It's right there on your pattern. Because you put it, you made a little note there. Eights. A lot of stuff will come natural. The more you do it, it just comes natural. You just get so used to it. When you used to examine clothing and you kind of like have an idea of how clothing is supposed to look and how it's supposed to be put together, or I would say constructed, it just comes naturally to you. Then you can start doing weird things out of the box and start freestyling your own designs and have a little fun with it, you know what I mean? That's what it's about. Using what you already have and making it into something fun as a fashion connoisseur. Okay, so there we have our seam allowance. The 1/8 of an inch. And if you're not sure of this, everything, like if your sleeve pattern looks weird as you're drafting it, you can also just cut out, make a copy of it, trace it over, put another piece of paper over it, trace it, cut it out, and then what we call walk it with the armhole, the front and the back. That would help you let you know if it's gonna when you put it together. That's gonna let you know if it's gonna add up and it's gonna be correct. So which I did already. I traced it with the seam allowance, and then I walked it with my armhole here, with the seam allowance of the front armhole. So you pretty much put the seam, the shoulder tip onto the shoulder tip of the front t-shirt, and you just walk it around the seam till you get all the way to the underarm, and mine matches up perfectly. And you can also do the same thing for the back as well. So there you have it. You have your sleeve draft for your t-shirt, and that's about it. So thank you guys so much for following me in this video. So we went over our measurement for our sleeve t-shirt, for our sleeves. We also drafted the sleeve pattern, and also we added the seam allowance, and we added our pattern information for our sleeve. So in the next coming videos, I'll show you how to cut out your material with the patterns, and then later on we'll start the sewing process. Thank you guys so much. If you have any questions or concern, if I'm going too fast or if you're not understanding anything, please feel free to leave a comment. Please like the video if you gave it a look. Subscribe for more upcoming great content, and I look forward to working with you guys and creating a lot more projects and super dope clothing. All right, thank you guys so much. Take care. Mwah.